The year was 1998. My brother and I were tagging along with our father in his usual weekend trip to Costco, which is just a giant wholesale store that sells everything from fresh seafood all the way to mattresses and chainsaws. Now in the 90s, it was more common for parents to let their children wander off while they did their shopping. Kidnappers be damned. Plus, my dad has one of the worst cases of ADHD I've ever seen, so getting him to agree with any poor decision we came up with was as simple as just asking the question. After receiving the usual sure from our dad, we were off to enjoy the playground that was Costco. One of our favorite activities was to race each other with the office chairs that were on display, but today we were feeling a little more sophisticated, so we decided to head over to the computer software section. When we arrived, I did my usual once-over of all the game boxes and homed in on the ones that caught my eye. There were the usual suspects like Baldur's Gate, StarCraft, Age of Empires, Quake, and of course the old standby, SimCity 2000. But that day, I noticed something different, something sinister. Tucked away on the corner of the shelf was a dark box with this horribly evil-looking creature staring back at me. It had twisting horns and teeth that made my nightmares seem like fairy tales. I was so enthralled with the image that I barely noticed the word Diablo written underneath. I've always had this abnormal obsession with scary material, so the entire presentation had me by the collar of my shirt. I yanked the box off the shelf, turned it around, and immediately began absorbing every bit of information. Storm Diablo's halls as either warrior, sorcerer, or rogue, each with unique skills and abilities. Unite to destroy Diablo, up to 4 players via internet or network. Unprecedented replayability and spine-chilling SVGA graphics. I was sold. All I had to do now was convince my dad to buy it for us. This is where having a father that doesn't listen to anything you're saying comes in handy. After a short exchange of words and another sure later, I was the proud soon-to-be owner of Diablo. Of course, we still had to finish shopping and then endure the excruciatingly long 20-minute car ride home. So I did what any other sensible kid from the 90s would have done. I read every single piece of information inside and out on the box as many times as humanly possible to distract myself from the time. And finally, after what seemed like an eternity, we arrived at our destination. I hopped out of the car and rushed into the house. My dad was a network engineer, so we had quite a few computers throughout our home, and since I was the youngest child, I was relegated to the oldest one. The location of this computer was upstairs in an office-like area that was connected to my bedroom with very little outside light. No one used this room for much of anything other than storage. It always felt creepy and isolated from the rest of the house, and honestly, it was the perfect place to experience a game called Diablo. I quickly booted the computer up, loaded the disk in the tray, and began the installation. And just when I thought my young patience was reaching its limit, the installation finished. I excitedly launched the game and stared at the screen with anticipation. One loud whooshing sound and 2 Blizzard logos later, I was once again facing the demon from the box cover. Only this time, it was more real, more alive. I was then presented with a choice, which character I was going to play, the warrior, rogue, or sorcerer. I briefly hovered over each one and quickly concluded that there was only one man for the job, the sorcerer. I mean, come on, if Mr. T couldn't handle it, then no one could. I quickly entered a name that I don't remember and loaded into town. Instantly, I was hit with the sound of a guitar that reverberated and echoed in a way that almost sounded otherworldly, and in turn, began to shift my feeling of excitement into unease. I tried my best to shrug it off though and made my way into town. After a brief encounter with a drunk and one left turn later, I found myself standing before a frail old man. a man that I had no idea would become one of the most iconic characters in gaming history, Cain the Elder, or as we've come to know him, Deckard Cain. I hovered the cursor over him and clicked my mouse.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
Of course, I indulged the old man by listening to his gossip, but I was eager to find this Diablo fella, so I made my way over to the town blacksmith, Griswold. After quickly realizing I was going to need more coin to afford anything of use, I decided to come back later and walked over to the tavern owner.
Thank goodness you returned. Much has changed since you lived here, my friend. All was peaceful until the Dark Riders came and destroyed our village. Many were cut down where they stood, and those who took up arms were slain or dragged away to become slaves, or worse. The church at the edge of town has been desecrated and is being used for dark rituals. The screams that echo in the night are inhuman, but some of our townsfolk may yet survive. Follow the path that lies between my tavern and the blacksmith's shop to find the church and save who you can. Perhaps I can tell you more if we speak again. Good luck.
Dark rituals? Inhuman screams? That feeling of unease began to intensify, but now I had an objective. Save as many people as I can inside the church, and I'd be damned before I let some Dark Riders stop me. I sat up straight, leaned a little closer to the screen, and made my way to the church. Upon my arrival, I saw something that will forever be ingrained in my mind. The sight of a man lying in a pool of his own blood. He had a hole in his chest, a chunk missing from his leg, and he appeared to be pleading for help.
Please, listen to me. The Archbishop Lazarus. He led us down here to find the lost prince. The bastard led us into a trap. Now everyone is dead, killed by a demon he called the Butcher. Avenge us! Find this butcher and slay him, so that our souls may finally rest.
Although my 8-year-old brain couldn't quite comprehend everything he said, there's one thing that I definitely understood. There's a demon in the church carving people up like pieces of meat, and he's befittingly referred to as the Butcher. Well, I thought to myself, this is what I signed up for, there's no backing out now, so I reluctantly made my way inside.
The sanctity of this place has been fouled.
The darkness was unsettling, and to make matters worse, the music had shifted. It sort of resembled the sounds you might hear coming from a well-decorated house on Halloween. You know, those cheap CDs that people put on to scare the kids while they're trick-or-treating. Except, the music in here felt alive. The bass drum made my heart beat faster, and as time went on, it got more intense, which gave me a sense of urgency that triggered my amygdala. Fight or flight? I chose to
fight. Eat your vegetables and rush after every meal.
All of a sudden, I found myself outside of a room, and what I saw in there froze me in my tracks. Dismembered corpses hanging from hooks, bodies impaled on poles. The floor and walls were painted with blood and innards. It looked just like the type of place a demon called the Butcher might call home. But I wasn't scared. I fought my way down here, killing everything in my path. Skeletons, zombies, and fallen ones were no match for me. I was about to make short work of this guy. I confidently walked up and opened the door.
Fresh meat.
I immediately regretted that decision. This big son of a bitch was coming at me like a defensive lineman at the Super Bowl. I frantically ran away and tried to reposition, but he was already on top of me. So I did the only thing I could do. I turned around and fought. And that was that. Not soon after my encounter with the Butcher, my stepmom, who is one of the sweetest and most loving people I know, caught wind of me and my brother playing a game called Diablo. And seeing as how she was a God-fearing woman, we couldn't possibly have that kind of blasphemy in the house, so she made my dad return it. Which, to be honest, I don't think you could do at the time, so I'm not exactly sure what happened to it. All I know is, we weren't allowed to play the game anymore. Even though my time in Diablo was short, it left a lasting impression on me. The feeling of excitement mixed with terror and suspense is something I had never felt from a video game before. It's a feeling that I still search for in most of the games I played today, but somehow, no one has been able to recreate exactly what Diablo had done 26 years ago. An ARPG with meaningful character progression, combined with a slow, methodical pace in a hauntingly horrific setting that made you wonder, what sort of monstrosity is waiting for me behind that door? So, Diablo, this is my love letter to you. Thank you for an unforgettable experience, one that shaped me into the person I am today. Thank you for showing me that something so dark and chilling can also be beautiful. Thank you for all the fond memories of my time spent in Tristram and below. But most of all, thank you for teaching me that sometimes it's the scary doors that are worth opening the most.